Hello, this is Father Matthew Schneider again on the Autistic Priest YouTube channel, and today I want to talk about an issue that gets a little less attention in the autistic community. It's not super spiritual, but I think sometimes in the blogs and the writings and the YouTube videos online, it's a point that doesn't get covered. And when we talk about autism, one of the signs is sensitivity irregularities, that we have irregular senses. And those senses are not from the biological senses, but from the processing of the brain. And that's important. Now, one of the things that usually happens after that is as soon as we say that, we switch from the irregular senses to the fact that we have to struggle with hypersensitivity. And most of us have hypersensitivity in some area, but I think a lot of us also have hyposensitivity. We're unsensitive to things. I'll give you a perfect example. Now, when I set up here, I am using kind of studio lights as you would have set up for a photography studio, and I am using, if you are into those type of things, I am using a 3-point system with a small light behind and 2 big lights in front of me here. Theoretically, you should use this light being a lot bigger than that light, but basically I just do it by doing distance here because I have 2 very bright lights. And the thing is that these lights are designed for photography studios. I intentionally put right above my desk. They're 2 550K, so like daylight, very white, almost bluish light that you can have, and they're each the equivalent, their fluorescence, the equivalent of like 250 watts. And so they're very large fluorescent bulbs, and they're very bright, but for me it seems perfectly fine. I actually enjoy that brightness right over my desk. Now, I know a lot of autistics like it like super dark and all those things, but I'm just the opposite in that regard. I really like that. I remember it caused a problem one time because we used to have very poor lighting situation in our chapel, and I replaced all the light fixtures. I am decently handy. I do have a good kind of, I studied engineering before, and before I was diagnosed as being autistic, I used to joke that I left engineering, but engineering never left me. Now I kind of say, well, that's autism in the sense that a lot of engineers have a lot of personality traits similar to autistics, whether they're autistic or not. And so anyway, I replaced all the fixtures and I put in bulbs that were bright like this, like bright white 5,500K bulbs. And everybody was like, whoa. And they're like, no, we don't want that. And then we had to go back to, much more normal. Most people like, in the 2,700 to 3,000, maybe 4,000 range. Your standard incandescent is probably about the 2,700 and so that's the more standard range of bulbs. The daylight bulbs are kind of an exception. But the fixtures we still have in our chapel here. Anyways, but that's an example of being hyposensitive. And I'm a little hyposensitive to pain too. I don't know if you can see it here. It's kind of hard to see, but this finger of mine, my ring finger on my left hand, which is my non-dominant hand, I'm right-handed, is a little unstraight. And that's because I broke it, and I didn't even realize I broke it. I was shutting the door quite powerfully because I had a kind of sticky door for the shower, and somehow the finger slipped, got caught between the door and the rest of the shower edge, and I broke my own finger. And I thought, oh, I just bruised it. Didn't even bother putting any kind of splint or anything on it. I said, oh, it's a minor bruise. And then like a week or two later, I realized that it sat a little off, but it's barely noticeable, and I'm not going to go through the whole medical procedure to straighten it out at this point. A number of other times I've been, out in the woods or playing sports and only notice when I take off the clothes that I have, pretty noticeable cuts on me. And it's not that I have no idea of pain. I just don't take it that way. I do feel pain. Like when I broke my finger, I thought I just bruised it, and that's life. And so there is that thing of hyposensitivity that is an autistic trait. And the same way, I'm hypersensitive in some other things. In different kinds of in different specific sounds and things like that. And so hopefully that's helpful. And I just want to share a bit of what people posted on Twitter, because I asked a question about this on Twitter using the Asking Autistics hashtag. Shout out to Neurodivergent Rebel for setting that one up. So and here's something that people mention about being hyposensitive to pressure, hunger, thirst, and heat. And those type of things, sometimes I do kind of crave that pressure. I often use a pressure vest. It's air pump. Maybe I'll do a video on it one time. But anyways, I keep having to replace my air pumps because I pressurize it so much that it doesn't break the air pump in one time, but having it beyond at like absolute maximum pressure that it could possibly do, I guess over time kind of weakens it, and then it's still pressurized, but not to the degree I like. It's called a squeeze vest. If I want to do a video on it, maybe I'll do a video on it sometime. And some people, like, they just want to be hugged and like squeezed and things like that, like myself in that sense. And I think a lot of us get a kind of combination of this. And I think, we can see that, and we can see, and so that's an important point. And now just a slight spiritual reflection, even though this video is not as spiritual as most of my other videos, which are really about spirituality and autism, is that I think sometimes we have to remember that God comes to us how we are. So if we have hyposensitivity somewhere, God is going to come to us stronger there. If we're hypersensitive, God's going to come to us weaker so He won't overwhelm us. And we have to trust God, and we have to look to God to come to us as we are, love us as we are, and bring us to Him as autistics.